Hey random stranger, how you been? How you going? I can't believe that it's December already. And for those of you who aren't huge fans of the Christmas season, I hope you're hanging in there. And I guess for the rest of you, happy early Christmas madness. Anyway, we are finally jumping back into episodes 7 and 8 of Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken, and I'm really looking forward to getting back to the energy of this show and just seeing what comes out of all of this work that's been put into perfecting this giant mech versus crab tool fight. Last time, the Eizouken's rise in the school's social pecking order was really noticeable. Not only did they snag the job of animating a promo for the Robot Club at the Cultural Festival, but Kanamori is also, she's in with the student council and got to wave their authority around like a big stick to get Doumeki, the sound girl, on board. And this time the art club is also willing to help out. So yes, I love seeing the girls making their mark on an ever expanding circle of people. And what's cool is that all of that came about as a direct result of the success of that 5-minute preview that they showed at the budget meeting and just how much buzz that generated. But with bigger fame and responsibilities come new and bigger problems. With this robot project, yes, they've got 3 times more the production time, but also they're dealing with a lot more complicated subject matter and, more importantly, more people and more opinions. You know how you can just tell if someone's incredibly passionate about something just by the way they talk? The air's electric, there's a spark in their eyes, and they can rant on and on and on about something without caring that other people think they're crazy for doing that. What I love about this show is that there is a cast full of people who are like that, who are just so passionate. And I think that's why it's always a rush watching Eizouken, because every episode we get to witness how passion for all sorts of things can manifest itself in really weird and genius ways. So, I mean, we've already seen the Eizouken girls' passion for animation, at least in Mizusaki and Asakusa's case, because I think for Kanamori, her passion is more like world domination. So in the last episodes, we got to dive into Asakusa's crazy brain right from the get-go with that film noir robot crime sequence, and pretty much watch her design a full-bodied mech with all of these minuscule details about its build from just the one impression of a giant robot footprint. And an extra bonus was seeing Asakusa go wild about possibly having amnesia and how she might be the bad guy instead of, Lord Yakuza Kanamori. And I thought that whole sequence was just amazing. The girls also go location scouting to really go that full mile and experience things in person to spark and inspire their imaginations. In fact, they are so passionate and so committed that they almost die because of fermented leaves, which I thought was hilarious, because at first I thought it was just part of an imaginary flight of theirs, but no, it was actual real life. Something else about Asakusa and her passion is that she injects so much passion into her voice when she's explaining her storyboards. And combined with the little details that she throws in, it doesn't really matter that the drawings that you see on the page or on screen are really like quick, really bare sketches, because her passion is contagious and she has a real gift of making you see the amazing things that she's seeing in her mind. For all of Kanamori's bluntness and just world weariness, I think she also is a character with an incredible amount of passion in how she drives projects and people forward. When she kicked down that underground steel door for the others, and her line, "There's no such thing as a door that cannot be opened," that was just a perfect capsule of who she is. Kanamori will deploy her Yakuza ways to get shit done. She had the Robot Club cowering in fear before her, and she is Machiavellian cunning in the way that she makes them feel like they are in charge, when really she's feeding them their own suggestions and their own vision for how this robot project should go. I do appreciate, though, that Kanamori is not this one-sided, wily character whose only purpose is to intimidate and to shake people down. her passion for getting things done also really shows off this incredibly high EQ side of her, particularly when applied to Asakusa. Like in the meeting with the art club, Kanamori immediately knows when Asakusa is just trying to cover over her awkwardness by acting all quirky, because that is her form of emotional defense. And of course, at the end of episode 6, we get Kanamori's rousing, Bonaparte like rallying speech that helps lift Asakusa out of her creative morass and just sends her back into battle against other people's expectations, which Kanamori tells Asakusa she should just ignore because, you know, she is the one with the brilliant talent, with the vision, and so she should just do what she feels is right. When it really matters, Kanamori comes out with these surprising moments of clarity and of passionate, inspirational moments, and it's such a satisfying contrast to her normally monotone, edgy, I guess, anti-emotion and outward appearance. So that's the Eizouken girls' passion for their work, but in the last 2 episodes, it was also really nice to see other students and their areas of passion and how differently they express it. In that scene where Kanamori meets up with the student council member that I'm in love with, the council member says, you know, they have their hands full trying to manage all of these weird, eccentric clubs that they have. Clubs like the Messenger Pigeon Club or the Car Revolution Club, which we saw at the budget meeting. There's also like the new Deutsch Heart Club, which I had to look up, and it turns out that it's actually a type of alternative metal music out of Germany and Austria. And then there was like also the Saw Table Tennis Club, which I don't know. When I first saw that name, I thought maybe it's a club where, you know, they do play table tennis, but they use stolen body parts instead of rackets, you know, because of Saw. I don't know. Based on just the peculiarity of those club names, you know that the school is full of awesome weirdos who would defend their respective passions with their lives, which in my experience is very different to real life. Usually in a school or like a group of people, those who are super, super, super passionate about something, anything, usually make up a small minority, which is a shame. Anyway, in addition to the robot club's passion for their mechs, which we'll talk about later, we also got to meet Doumeki and see how passionate she is about sound. Here is this lone club member holding down 4 rooms all on her own, you know, which are bursting to the seams with all these rare sound effects, including the 72 different types of sounds from the Kegon Falls, and she's refusing to vacate them. And then in marches Kanamori, leader of the fearsome public enemy #1 Eizouken Club, threatening to kick her out and to sell all her stuff at while she's at it. So thank God Asakusa is there, because I guess she sees and she respects Doumeki's domain of sound. And when she inadvertently makes Doumeki puke by showing her like their terrible sound library, they end up getting themselves an audio advisor, which was really cool. Seeing Doumeki get triggered like that was so relatable, and it really made me love her even more. I think if you're passionate enough about something that seeing it done badly makes you sick, you really have your life together, because it means that you found your purpose. You know what I mean? Let's talk about the Robot Club. It was mentioned that the Robot Club, interestingly, was inspired by 19th century French literature, including the novel The Future Eve, which I've not read myself, but it was written by French author Auguste Vier de L'Isle Adam. Sorry for my really bad French pronunciation. And it apparently was a novel that popularized the term android, and features like a fictional Thomas Edison, and also has some wonderful misogynistic themes and really interesting reflections on dualism, which is that branch of philosophy that posits a clear separation between body and mind, or the soul and the mind. No, sorry, the soul and the body. So yeah, maybe a possible read over Christmas. What was interesting about the interactions between the Robot Club and the Eizouken is that it really takes time for them to find their creative synergy. As Kanamori pointed out at the start, the Robot Club really hasn't made much creative progress with their robot designs despite having such a long history and despite their passion for it. You know, they've literally just been swapping out the robot head and nothing else. Mizusaki and Asakusa also find all of these flaws with their designs, and because they're the pros, you know, they know what they're talking about, and it's really not easy for the Robot Club to swallow, you know. And through that process of these two clubs working together to rework the design and just trying to find a middle ground, we get to see this fascinating struggle that all art faces generally, which is how much realism should you inject into your creative work? It's a struggle that breaks Ono, the president of the Robot Club, who we see angrily rants about how robots are meant to be fantastical, magnificent machines of awesome power, but then contradicts himself by worrying excessively that Eizouken will come up with these nonsense designs that don't respect real humanoid robot aesthetics. And it's a problem that Mizusaki summarizes really well. She said that the inherent problem here is that reality doesn't care about humanoid robots. So, like, how do you extract a fantastical idea that's in your mind and then represent it visually in the real world without causing that image to collapse because it's too unrealistic? In other words, like, how do you draw something that is intrinsically unrealistic in an adequately believable and realistic way without also killing off the fantasy of the thing? By total coincidence, I've also been reading at the same time E.H. Gombrich's The Story of Art, which covers the history of art since the time of the Egyptians up until now. And it is crazy how real that struggle with realism has been throughout the centuries. And what was fascinating was that it was only when artists discovered and then mastered the mathematical rules around perspective and composition and the use of light and shade to create a sense of realism, and, you know, also seriously studied what actual human anatomy was like. Only then was art propelled forward and able to progress to these new fantastical heights. So the High Renaissance in the 15th and 16th century Italy was the culmination of that realism, where you had masters that we all know the names of today, like Da Vinci and Michelangelo and Titian, who produced art with mythological or biblical themes, but used techniques to make the images more real, more lifelike, which ironically was able to enhance the majesty and the fantasy of the subject matter. Relating it back to Eizouken, Asakusa is one of those Renaissance masters. You know, she took the subject matter, which is like a fight between a giant mech and a crab tool, and made it both just fantastical and just realistic enough so that the design could come to life in a more impactful way. For example, she gave the robot joints with exposed open spaces on both sides to make it look less chunky and more vaguely biological. She also based the abilities of the crab tool on an actual, I think it was a pistol shrimp that lives in the Atlantic Ocean. And she determined its power, like the power of its plasma beam, by calculating that the crab tool is 507.3 times bigger than the actual size of the shrimp. And that is why Asakusa is so boss and able to blow people's minds. It's because she Da Vinci's the shit out of her given subject matter by adding just enough real world details so that people can think of it as being plausible, while also leaving enough to the imagination that they can indulge in the fantasy of the thing that's in their minds. The negative way in which the Robot Club first reacted to Asakusa applying her realism to their beloved mech robots was also very true to real life. Historically, when artists started injecting realism into their works, you know, painting things as they would actually appear in real life, there was often an uproar and this refusal to accept that that was the proper way of painting things, particularly if it involved a scene from the Bible that was particularly significant, because people thought that making that too real disrespected the subject matter. And there's a great story about Caravaggio and how he had to redo his painting of Saint Matthew writing the gospel, because the first version he gave to the church that commissioned this showed Saint Matthew as this gawky, awkward, dust covered man just writing anxiously, because it's an important job, right? You know, of course it's going to be nerve wracking. But the church was scandalized about that painting because Caravaggio had painted it too real. And so the second version he was asked to do, which is called The Inspiration of St. Matthew, which still hangs in that church in Rome today, was a much more sanitized, more boring depiction of the scene. But luckily, you know, unlike Caravaggio and the church, Asakusa and Mizusaki do manage to connect emotionally with Ono and the Robot Club over that shared struggle of always having to balance out the ideal with reality and somehow not entirely ever being able to marry the two, which then allows them to work with the Robot Club to try and find and strike that right balance. Another aspect of reality that I guess you have to consider or intrudes in on your attempt to produce great art is finances. There was that interesting conversation about money with Kanamori on one side and then the pair of dreamers, Asuka and Mizusaki, on the other, as usual. The issue was that, so they're getting paid for this project, which is great, right? For Kanamori, you know, the act of accepting pay for your work gives you reason to take responsibility for it and incentivizes you to do it well. So to her, getting paid is part of the process of recognizing the quality of your work. Whereas Mizusaki and Asaka are more, what did I say? Asakusa, sorry. They're more like, wouldn't making anime without having to think about money and just doing it for the sake of the art, for the enjoyment, and just for the sheer passion of it be the best thing ever? I think they're both right. You know, they're representing two sides of the same coin that is the creative industry. On the one hand, very few works would be created if people weren't paid, you know, and in a world without some kind of monetary based free market system, there'd probably be a lot of shitty projects out there with no way to differentiate on quality. But also, there's a parallel world, right, where people do create art purely because they want to and not because of any financial incentive. And some truly great artworks are born out of being unrestricted by the expectations that do come with someone paying you to do it. And so, I mean, an example of that immediately comes to mind, some, you know, AO3 fanfics and even some original works that people put out there for free, you know, that I've read, that I'm amazed haven't been picked up by, you know, actual publishers and TV networks, because they are so much more well written than what you can actually pick up in a bookstore. Another theme of the last two episodes was that projects become exponentially more difficult the more people are involved. We saw that when Asakusa really struggles to explain things to the art club, and it's almost like her brain and their brains just can't get on the same wavelength. But yeah, Kanamori, again, being as real as ever, reminds Asakusa that she has to involve other people because she can't draw everything on her own. Youngblood also pointed out how Asakusa has the knowledge of so many subjects that allows her to connect with the Robot Club and the Sound Club, but seems to have a hard time speaking with the Art Club. Maybe the more alleged liberal nature of their craft is a barrier to connect technically as with the other two. I found that intriguing, the thought that the reason Asakusa can connect more easily with someone like Ono or Doumeki is because their respective areas of expertise and passions involve ostensibly more technical, tech-based knowledge, as opposed to the more free flow artsy type mindset. Although, I mean, having read more about art lately and all of the technical considerations that go into composing a picture and finding harmony between all of the different elements of an art piece, even though it looks like it's done very effortlessly, I think there may be more common ground between the art club and Asakusa than they probably expect. But also, it is interesting to consider the real differences between liberal art and anime art, or technical art, if that is even a term. I guess it's kind of like the difference between creative writing and technical writing. You know, they both require creativity and they do share some core techniques of writing, but they also are very different in terms of how they go about arranging the words on a page and on the types of words they use and just how they determine what feels right. The fact that Okamoto, the president of the art club, was asking us because of questions like, so what's a cell? And has to be told why the story is set at 6 a.m. in the morning because that makes it easier to animate because there's no people around, really highlighted that gap. And you also see Asakusa just have a bit of a hard time letting go of some parts of the creative process to other people. Her mouth is saying, you know, she's happy to leave the details to the art club, but you can see her fingers are just itching to do everything herself because what the art club comes up with has to gel with the cell animation that she's doing. And David Myford mentioned how this scene really highlights the difficulties of delegation, you know, and how sometimes you have no choice but to just hand your precious projects off to people because your Yakuza boss needs you to work on something else, you know. And I highly relate to that anguish, you know. The words collaborative writing project still gives me PTSD flashbacks from like university days. And, you know, in the real world though, unfortunately, delegation is just unavoidable 99% of the time. There were also some pretty significant character beats for each of our main girls. We got a first glimpse of how utterly exhausted Kanamori is, which is so rare. You know, the girl is running herself down, solving problem after problem, while enabling and supporting the other two to create and do their thing. Seeing her inhale that red pepper ramen was like a bit scary, but also mad respect to Kanamori, for whom failure is not an option and who would die like a million deaths before she let that team fail. On another serious note, there was like a brief mention of how Mizusaki is actually hiding her animation activities from her parents. That family drama is definitely going to explode at some point down the track, and I'm looking forward to seeing how Kanamori and Asakusa respond to it, particularly Kanamori, because I want to see how she would help Mizusaki handle her parents, who I assume, given their status and social status, whatever, I'm assuming that they are super intimidating and stubborn, based on the little that we do know. You know, parents who send like a security detail to make sure you don't pursue your dreams are probably real pieces of work. And finally, with Asakusa, for the first time as well, we see her insecurities around people criticizing her work sort of surface. And after her shaky meeting with the art club, she's outside digging for obsidian and just talking to herself and filling up her brain with all these logical details, almost as if she needs that to recover. And then she starts to have this panic attack and is suddenly hit by the fact that what they're trying to do is make unreal giant robot mechs look and feel real. Going back to that ideal versus reality dilemma, and you can see the pressure of that dilemma is really getting to Asakusa, especially now that there are other people watching what she's doing and, you know, giving her opinions. However, the other two have her back. I loved when Kanamori said to Asakusa to shut up, your drawings are fantastic, and then Asakusa just shoots back with, people who don't know how to draw always say that, which, ouch, because it is sort of true. Like, I'm someone who cannot draw and I'm always raving about my friends' paintings or drawings, which I honestly think are just all amazing, and they'll just look back at me and be like, thank you, but you know nothing. Mizusaki also adds her own wisdom to the mix, and just reminds Asakusa that doing a robot anime inherently or inevitably means that you're going to have to be committing some art crimes. You know, the important thing is like, which crimes do you choose to commit, and for what reason? And then we get Kanamori's battle speech, which I already mentioned before, in which she essentially tells Asakusa to draw what she thinks is best and screw everyone else, because that is what will result in the best outcome if she is true to her vision. And as Kanamori is giving like that rousing pep talk, the music in the background, I love the music choice there because it's like a bunch of electronic brass sounds, just something you'd play as a call to arms. I also loved Kanamori's quote, like, it doesn't matter if the finished product isn't perfect, but if it's boring, you will be held responsible. And it's so true. Like with anything, the worst thing you can do is produce something that's just mediocre because you held back for fear of what others would think. Some random cool details from the last few episodes that I just want to note. So this scene where Mizusaki and Asakusa are running away from the bad guy, I love that when they go into slow-mo, they're running, but the background isn't actually moving. It's just sort of shaking up and down, which was like a really cool camera technique because although obviously it's not very realistic, but it is an incredibly efficient way to convey frantic movement without having to animate the frames in the background. Towards the end of episode 5, when they're test driving the robot from the cockpit, and Kanamori asks a really great question. She says, are all these switches actually helpful? And Mizusaki answers, well, it shows really that people who make robot anime ultimately put their faith in people. And I was like, wait, what does that even mean? And what I think she meant, and I'd be curious, like, if anyone has any other ideas, is that, you know, in shows when you see the main character jump into the cockpit and they're flipping switches left, right, and center, often without even looking, and almost always in a vehicle or some kind of machine that they've never driven before. But that is why showing the flipping of the switches is important, because it communicates to the viewers visually that this person knows exactly what they're doing, they're in control despite all odds. Otherwise, they wouldn't be flipping these switches so easily. So yeah, I was like, it's kind of cool how details like that play off our psychology. Other details about that robot scene. So Sekai actually pointed out how cool it was that the purple paint fell off when the robot stood up, and I'd missed that detail the first time watching, but yeah, it was very cool because it's like it shook off that sketchy watercolor quality and then transitioned into the more polished, more colored in illustrations. So another way that Eizouken shows us the creative process of progressing from a very vague idea to a more solid concept. Also, I really like that Ono got to flex his knowledge when he noticed that drill. Which one? Yeah, this one. When he noticed that the drill bit that Asakusa drew first is actually used for wood, and he tells her to turn it into a metal drill instead. And she's impressed, and so was I, because never in a million years would I be able to tell which drill bit was used for what material. Lastly, and in light of the fact that we just finished wrapping up the Hoseki no Kuni or Land of the Lustrous manga, thank you so much, Organic Commission, for letting me know that the student council member I'm in love with is called Sowande Sakaki, and she is voiced by the same voice actor who plays Cinnabar in the Land of the Lustrous anime, which makes me love her even more given how Cinnabar is my favorite gem, even after everything that happened. So yeah, that was very cool to know. Alright, that is it for the recap. I'm very much looking forward to seeing how this robot ends up being animated, especially because last episode we kind of left off with a really super complicated design and I have no idea how they're going to pull it off. So if you guys are ready to do this, let's play episode 7 in 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, that was Mizusaki's estate, family estate. Wow. Her room is massive. I kind of like how they left the mom in the shadows a bit. Oh, we're gonna get the family drama this episode. Oba-chan? She thinking about the movement of the water and how it was thrown? Whoa. Her grandma's so cool. So fashionable. What kind of school is this? School for rich kids. Oh, but instead of learning the manners and etiquette, she. This is where she picks up her fascination for human movement and drawing it. Oh my god. Ah, the pressure these kids must have grown up with. Probably like, heirs and heiresses to these giant corporate empires. And learning how to walk is like paramount to the continuation of their noble line. Oh, Mizusaki is just like body movement. I love that we're getting how this is how Mizusaki grew her passion. But I wonder what happened to Oba-chan. Oh god, is this gonna be a really sad episode? Brass music. She's a sweet kid. Mm, I wonder what happened to her Oba-chan. Maybe like her Oba-chan was like the only one who really believed in her dream to pursue animation, and now that she's gone, her parents are like, you've got no one left on your side in the family. Uh, God, I miss this OP. It's funny because I don't think we've really had too many sentimental moments in this show. Like it's all very been bright and colorful and humorous and all that, and just fast paced. But I don't think we've ever actually slowed down to explore more of the emotional beats of the characters. So maybe this episode feels like it's going to be a turning point. I don't know. Oh, more clubs. I love Doumeki. She fits right into the chaos. And she knows to like not cross Kanamori. Mm. Interesting. I never thought that you'd have to match the sound effects with the dialogue, but yeah, makes total sense. It's like chicken or the egg problem. Still with the eating the crab. Oh. Oh, it's come a long way, the storyboard. And now they're the ones doing the sound effects. Oh, they're doing the voice acting themselves. But he's making up for it with his enthusiasm, his boundless enthusiasm. Only Asakusa is brave enough to poke at Kanamori. Oh, they're doing. Who's doing the OP? Oh. Oh, those teeth. Just poking at that ADHD. Oh no. Just tearing it to bits. She says, laughing. Kanamori is suspiciously silent. Oh, not impressed. Oh no. Delegation fail. I don't even know how they have room for any other classes doing this. Oh. Damn, that's gonna be some pretty big rains storm. Back to the laundromat. I mean, I wonder how often Mizusaki's parents are around anyway. At least they seem to be in the same country. Oh, it's kind of money paying for them. Hmm? What? That's right. I mean, Mizusaki probably has never been to a public bath because they probably have an entire one in their house. She's like, don't waste a cent of my money. Oh, I love this. uh, she's like, I've suffered enough for your artistic, eye. Wait, is that a real view? If so, that is incredible. Hmm. Except the one thing that she loves more than anything. Hmm. Oh my god, what was that? That's so random. It's so incredible. Well, that is pretty cool. What is happening? I love how there's just we don't get any warning that we're gonna go into their imaginations. It just happens. I love that. There's two random dudes that are caught in this watercolor fictional world. Ah, look at those. I don't know what they're called, but they're like those Tori gates or something. That's so pretty. She's so tiny though. I think she's like half Mizusaki's height. It's such an obscure problem. It's so real though. Yeah, maybe they just need an outsider's perspective, someone who's not in the design field. Animation otaku. I love that theater they're in. Those Doumeki sound effects. Mm. I love that Mizusaki hates it. Mm. Oh, that's amazing, those colors. Yeah, but then only the people who have that sort of brain and that knowledge can truly appreciate it. And sometimes you're just making something for the masses. It's the movement. Mm. Kanamori, stop it. I can't take any more of this detail. Uh, she gets it. She respects that. She respects Mizusaki's, passion and the logic behind it. There it probably is. Oh, what is she standing on? Those last 2 minutes of that episode just like flew. Oh, I love that we got like a real Mizusaki focused episode. Because I guess she's sort of been in the background for the last 2 or 3 episodes. And I love the circularity with the motion of the flicking the tea out into the oven. How it started and ended with that. Oh man. It's such, design and art is so fraught with dilemmas. It's like, yes, you have to create something that people will actually watch. And, most people who watch your work probably won't appreciate the details and the artistry and the technical considerations that go into making the animation of a certain movement. But for that one person, you'll do it for that one person who will get it. And you'll never meet them, they'll never meet you. But just knowing that someone out there will get the blood, sweat, and tears that you poured into that one little animation movement, that makes it all worth it. Ah, it's awesome. Just feel the passion like rushing out of Mizusaki. That was so cool. All right, let's go straight to episode 8. You guys are good to go. Let's do this in 3, 2, 1, play. It always happens. Live dubbing. Oh, I love how we're watching through the window as well. The browser. And of course, we don't get to see any of it. Hmm. It's like adding all these other elements to the production also makes it more complicated exponentially. That's a lot of cuts. Motif. It actually really is crazy if you think about it, like how much work goes into making a cutscene perfect. Because when you watch it, because it's perfect, you don't really think about any of the thought that went into it. It just works. But yeah, to make things like this work, so much time and effort. Yeah, that silence works really well if you use it properly. What was that laugh? Man, what do they have? Look at that pool and those tennis courts. Whoa. Damn. They still look so young though, her parents. Damn, she's even living in like a loft. Oh no. Oh no, what does Kanamori have up her sleeve? She's like 10 steps ahead of how to sell this thing. Of course. Yes, but you and the air conditioning. Two tools. I know, does Misaki not want to use her fame like that? Like, this is the thing that's separate from her modeling. Ugh, too late. Asakusa. Nani? Oh man. Loving this parent family drama. So I guess what Mizusaki has to, I mean, accepted her role of being the poster girl for this um, animation because it's something like she can show her parents, well, no, this is actually part of my modeling gig. You know, I didn't do this because I really just wanted to do anime. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I kind of get the sense that Mizusaki just wants to keep the animation part of her life separate from the rest of it all. It's just like her comfort space, you know. It's free from the expectations of well, the expectations of being a model, being in the spotlight all the time. Poor kid. I just love how Kanamori is just has no qualms with just using that. Here we go, the big day. Oh my gosh, they go full out. She's like a manta ray. Whoa. Oh, that was cool. Oh man. Just got those like drawn flyers. That'll do it. What? Holy man, Robo Club, they really did well with the promo. But why the manta ray? I mean that those them's are the rules of fame. I love those earpieces they have. So pro. Is she negotiating with? Fight for every degree. Uh... Here's the blackmail we've all heard about. That is amazing. Whoa. This is serious business. So dramatic. There's music in the back. Who is this council member? Wait, was that like sweat on her armpits? Fight of the cardboard robots. Whoa, how did they plan all of these? Oh. Oh, there we go. That's why. Girl like making a robot anime. But it's okay to rough up your own students. Is that oh no? Oh no. Surprisingly badass. Man, this guy's got some real marketing chops. Oh my god. He's just like living out all of his robot fantasies. How did they even set this all up? Love how his voice is just on the loudspeakers as well. Oh my god. That crazed laugh at the end. That was fantastic. He would give his life for this. Oh, come on, student council. Look at all the people who want to watch this thing. Oh, that look of determination on Asakusa's face. She's like realizing how important this is to Mizusaki in terms of showing her parents that this is really what she wants to do and that she's good at it. Actually, I think her parents are gonna be cool with this. It's weird how her dad is just doing this for her mom, but at the expense of Mizusaki's own dreams. Oh, man, max effect. Oh, I love that bit of flesh that connected the shell, like the clamp and the arm. Look at them eat. Oh, man. The way that she held her chopsticks and her mom noticed it, that was so cool. She was like, hey, that's my daughter. Oh, and the flicking of the. Oh my god. I love all these references. Oh man, they're doing all this live. That's insane. Ooh, nice explosion. Some awesome music. Art club. Oh, the way the music cut out. Ooh. I. Oh. Oh. Whoa, hard cut. Standing O. Oh my god. Kanamori. It's like Mizusaki is her friend, yes, but she will exploit that shit for every cent. Oh, Kanamori. I mean, she's sending her off on a lunch errand, but really she's doing the kind thing and being like, hey, you can get out of the spotlight now. You did good. Oh, cash only. That's so cool. What the? Yo. She's like, I've been bitten by the bug, and there's nothing you or I can do about it. I'm gonna pursue this path. Oh, validation at last. It's so interesting because obviously her parents are like live action actors or director, I don't know. Directors or actors? Maybe both. Which is why Mizusaki is always just comparing animation to live action and how one is better than the other, you know. It's already doing the autopsy. It's like one step above friendship. It's comrades. Oh, that was a nice, like, fuzzy, warm ending. And those two episodes really went well together as an arc, with ending with Mizusaki's parents recognizing purely by watching the movie that their daughter really is a genius at this stuff. Yeah, I really did love that for a big section of that robot sequence. Um, we didn't get the full on like sound effects and everything, but it was just her parents talking over the movie, and I thought that worked really, really well because it was like this revelation that they were getting as they were watching this film and recognizing all the little details that they knew Mrs. Saki had put in there because of how unique to their daughter they were. And that was a really cool way to do that. Man, also the bond that these three have, I just love watching it keep it on growing and growing with each episode. Okay. Okay, highlights for me for these two episodes. In episode 7, I'm happy that we got to see insights into Mizusaki's childhood and glimpses also of how her grandma helped her develop her love for studying human movement. Not directly, but you get the sense that she definitely supported her grandkids' passion for drawing, unlike Mizusaki's parents. Mizusaki being that one kid in etiquette class who was more interested in drawing people's movements than learning how to sit and stand properly, which I still find is such a weird thing for a kid to have to go to class for, but I don't know, rich people things. Um, that also explains, you know, that despite her popularity as a model, Mizusaki knows what it's like to not fit in and to have a really different worldview than almost everyone else around you. Um, Also, I want to know more about her grandma. I loved that more sentimental moment where Mizusaki is using her knowledge of how humans move their feet to help her grandma walk better. And you see her like taking a ride down the hallway in her grandma's wheelchair. So, yeah, more backstory on the influence her grandma had on her developing her skills as an artist, and also how Mizusaki must have clung onto that given her parents' disapproval. That would have been really fascinating to get into. And also what happened to Oba-chan? Like, I really, really want to know. What else in that episode? Oh, we also again see Asakusa's pain communicating with the art club. Just more reminders that it is painful to have to acknowledge that you can't take everything back and do it yourself, even though she tried to and got smacked for it by Kanamori. I also love that we get another epic speech, this time from Mizusaki, to cap off the episode, emphasizing again that she's really all about animation rather than making anime. So making her art make people feel movement that is true to real life is her passion. To her, that is her life, and it has been ever since she discovered the joy of as simple a movement as her grandma chucking tea out the window. And she'll keep animating for herself, like even if most people don't or can't appreciate it. So yeah, that I don't know, that was just such a rousing speech, and it makes you kind of just reflect on what you're passionate about and how much are you really putting yourself out there to pursue what you love doing, regardless of what people think about it. Episode 8, of course, was the resolution to her parents not really seeing her passion for most of her life. We find out Mizusaki's dad puts so much pressure on her to become an actress because it's some weird indirect way for him to fulfill his wife's dreams for their daughter. But in the end, they're quite reasonable people, especially after seeing how awesome the film Mizusaki had a part in animating is. That they always knew she had a gift for observation and loved imitating movements, first with her body and then now through her art. That as actors, they can appreciate that you can act through your art, or rather show your grasp of the fundamentals of what is good acting through how you animate people and things moving. I also really appreciated her parents' recognition that they haven't been around for Mizusaki, but that in spite of that, she was still able to discover and grow her own talents and be the best that she can be, which is fortuitous, I guess, for them, because some kids, you know, if left completely alone, especially in an environment where they have all the money in the world and no one to guide them, they can go like way off the rails. And so, yeah, Mizusaki is a really good kid. Honorable mention to Ono and the rest of the Robot Club, who came in clutch with that brilliant plan to foil the student council and pass out all these free cardboard robot suits to anyone who would come watch the show. They literally put their lives on the line to make sure that the screening would go ahead, and they did it. Yeah, so you got to be willing to die for the cause, mate. And yeah, with that, I think I'm gonna end it here. Like, let me know what you guys thought about these 2 episodes, and I really hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Until next time, when we get to episode 9 and 10, be good, take care, and yeah, I'll talk to you guys soon.